Thank you, Chairman, dear colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. My role here today is also to summarize on the status of our union, on the status of MEFANET after 7 years of networking. And as many of you know, I'm going to do it on behalf of Ladislav Dušek, who sends greetings from Ljubljana to all of you who work hard to complete MEFANET missions. And 6 different missions are the main focus of my talk today. I have selected them to report on the status of their completion. And before I'm doing so, I would like also to introduce our network, our MEFANET network, to our international guests and you newcomers. And at the end of my talk, I will conclude with an overview of our common achievements and future work which is planned to be involved in. MEFANET has established itself as a standard-setting body or standard-setting authority for all medical educators in Czech Republic and Slovakia, 2 independent countries which once comprised the federation, with very similar languages and very similar curricular structure in medical education. The main objective of the network was always to ensure horizontal accessibility of all learning and teaching materials for students and teachers across the network. MEFANET has evolved from its local beginnings in the years 2006 and 2007 into international cooperation of all medical faculties in this region, and recently also other faculties focused on health science entered the network as well. Our cooperation is contractually based or guaranteed. The contract was signed by all deans of medical faculties in 2009. There is a famous video which I would like to share it with you because it's about the movement, and it might remind you something about how MEFANET moved e-learning in medical education. So it will give us some lessons about e-learning in medical education and its history. Can we play the video, please? Fine. Can we have more sound? Fine. So if you look at this leader, he needs a lot of courage to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is quite easy and almost instructional. And now we have a first follower with a crucial role because he shows publicly how to follow. Being the first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership, because he transformed the alone nut, the alone crazy guy, into a leader. Now it's not about the leader, it's about them. And we are waiting for the second follower, which will come in a minute, and this will be the turning point. Now we have the second follower, and he's proving that the first one has done it well. Because now we don't have one single nut, we don't have 2 crazy guys, we have a crowd. We have three is a crowd. Crowd is in news, and the movement must be public. The additional or the new followers emulate not the leader, but they emulate the first followers. And now we have the movement. We have a momentum as more people are jumping in. It's no longer risky, and all the people want to become the part of the crowd because they would eventually become ridiculous if not joining. So I will wait and the MEFANET network gathers together. And now let's recap some lessons learned from this video. So first of all, if you sometimes feel like a version of this shirtless guy dancing all alone at the beginning, remember the importance of treating your first followers as your equals. Be public and be easy to follow. And the biggest lesson here, if you catch it, is that the leadership is over-glorified. It was the first follower who transformed the single dancing nut into the leader. and there will be no movement without the first followers. And now let's get back to the MEFANET missions. The first one is about ensuring horizontal accessibility of all the learning and teaching materials across the network. There are many tools and platforms for sharing the educational resources, but we knew from beginning that we would work with a quite specific group of users, and those were medical teachers and medical students. So we refused the idea of using some central learning management system of sophisticated digital library, because those kinds of platforms do not provide the authors to be easily followed, they don't provide them with the possibility to publish their work. So we built our own e-publishing system, which offers to students and teachers a medium where they can find contributions which are always reviewed and must be cited when reused. Our e-publishing system, or the idea behind it, is based on a set of standalone web portals rather than on some centralized and hosted application. All the web portals are standalone publication media with its own ISSN codes, with its own editorial boards, and the metadata which describe the content which is published locally are replicated on a regular basis to the central gate. We call this process as metadata harvesting. And here perhaps I should explain that the central gate is not only a place for publishing the teaching materials, but it's also some kind of machine which indexes and integrates all contents from different medical schools on one place. And when you intend to combine contents from different medical schools, you have to implement certain rules for publishing, or implement certain, let's say, processes, editorial processes, in order to avoid publishing such an incompatible mix to students. We simply didn't want to develop a chaotic platform, and that's why we have built it on these three fundamental elements. The first one is medical disciplines linker, which is a single level list of medical specialization, and it represents a taxonomy of all contributions in the MEFANET network, and it is the only obligatory structure for all instances of web portal. Then we have authentication and authorization framework, which run thanks to eduid.cz Federation. It's Federation of Identities, and thanks to this service, which is provided by our academic internet operator CESNET, our users do not have to create 11 separate user accounts. They just log in to their home institution, and their home institution sends or provides the identity data to the service providers, which are, in our case, the web portals. Then we have the digital contents quality evaluation, which is a set of editorial processes which I'm going to speak about later in detail. So these are the three fundamental principles which has to be rigid. The other functionalities, properties can be localized or adapted to meet the needs of particular faculties or institutions. And I'm sure that most of you know these three fundamental elements, and if not, there is an article where you can find all the details. It was published last year or 2 years ago in journal Computer Methods and Programs in Biomedicine. So let's move to the second mission, quality evaluation of digital educational resources. This was the third element I showed you in the list of the basic elements. We use four-dimensional model for quality assessment. The first and the most important dimension is an expert review, because we focus on delivering only peer-reviewed and validated materials to our students. The second dimension is the educational level of the target group. We steer our authors as well as the reviewers to indicate the level of difficulty to all materials, to undergraduate, graduate, advanced level according to the complexity of the material. In the third dimension, we categorize or classify the contributions according to the multimedia which are inside the contributions. And the fourth dimension gives us the score, which is composed from points assigned by students themselves. And this score should indicate how useful is the particular contribution for self-study. And let me also to touch on how the individual contributions are administered by the portal platform. On one side we have authors and technical editors, on the other side we have reviewers and guarantors. And we can have one guarantor responsible for all medical disciplines, or we can have also cases when, where there are many guarantors assigned to many disciplines. And each time a single contribution is submitted to the portal platform by author together with his or her technical editor, the guarantor is responsible for organizing the review procedure, and in this review procedure there are at least 2 reviewers involved, and the reviewers are completing online review form. At the end of all the editorial processes, we have always such a graphical 4-dimensional evaluation of quality, where all details about authors as well as all details about reviewers and guarantors are published together with the contribution. What is that? It's not always possible to stick to all of the rules, because there are also other rules set for metadata completeness and to availability of the documents referenced in the contributions. So it's not always possible to stick to all of the rules, because the teaching materials, especially the complex one, go through different stages of development, and that's why we came up with the idea of a sandbox, which can be a place where those contributions which cannot be published on the central gateway of MEFANET portal platform can be stored here at Sandbox, and we believe that Sandbox can potentiate collaboration of authors to finish the unfinished contributions. On this figure you see dynamics of increase in contributions, and at this point, somewhere during 2011, we introduced the editorial processes. So the difference you can see is due to the editorial processes, but it's important to know that since then we have been providing continuously our students with peer-reviewed and validated materials only. So we can think about those movements in 2011 as a part of a success story, because we moved from quantity criteria to quality criteria. Let's move to the third mission, which is about e-assessment of students. There's a group of incredible people sitting somewhere here in the hall, and this group formed a team, and it was the team who wrote this book. And what else can I add? Well, it's thanks to people like Česmír Štuka, Martin Komenda, Patricia Martinková, Jan Trnka, and Martin Vejraška, who, I would like to thank for their huge efforts which were put into writing this book, and which resulted in these very useful guidelines on constructing and analyzing e-tests for assessment in medical education. And I would like to draw your attention to our tomorrow morning session, which is devoted to e-assessment in medical education, and which should be finished with some round table discussions. Why we want to discuss it? Because we need to take decisions about how to share questions across our network, how to share data about psychometric attributes of these questions across the network. And I would like also to draw your attention to our third plenary lecture today, which will be given by our dear guest, Dr. Samuel Wilkinson, and we will share ideas about how to manage e-assessment more with a technical background. So, we know how to construct the test, we know how to analyze the data, and we need to take other and further decisions, and there are many areas of concern and issues. Let's move to the fourth mission. It is about extending our MEFANET portal platform into ICT infrastructure. And by ICT infrastructure, I mean really integrating all ICT tools and platforms which are used in MEFANET or which have been developed by MEFANET under one umbrella. Many of you know that we have sub-projects which are on the scheme. These sub-projects are quite independent on the MEFANET portal platform, and we call them extensions. But these extensions, I have to tell you, they are going really well indeed. For example, the famous Wiki Lectures, a place for collaborative creation of teaching and learning materials by students and for students. They are very famous and students love them, and I know about some medical schools abroad which simply envy us. And we could be missing out on a great opportunity if we don't integrate them under one umbrella of MEFANET portal platform. And how to do it? Is it too complicated to do it? Yes, it is, but it is still achievable, and simply by harvesting metadata about the content in Wiki Lectures to Central Gate, then by harvesting metadata about other contents in other sub-projects or other extensions of the MEFANET portal platform which has been developed so far. And here I would like to tell you something about our latest or newest extension, which is devoted to gamification of medical education. This term I learned from my friend Adrian Raudashel, who will give you a very interesting workshop this afternoon, and there are still free places, so don't hesitate to go for that workshop. And what we did here is that we asked all teams inside MEFANET who developed, for example, virtual cases in Hradec Králové or interactive algorithms in acute medicine here in Brno or pediatric casuistics in Olmos, we asked them to provide us their metadata. Then we are simply harvesting the metadata, so each time a new object with an aroma of serious game or virtual patient is born somewhere inside MEFANET, it immediately appears on the Games MEFANET CZ. The term Games MEFANET CZ has been first published this spring, so since then you all can reference to Games MEFANET CZ as a well-settled, well-established extension of MEFANET portal platform. So it might look like this fourth mission about the gamification of medical education inside MEFANET has been completed, but it's not, because we cannot ignore the fact that the youngest generation of our students, the digital natives, will require to have their learning materials on their mobile phones, on their smartphones, tablets, Google, sunglasses, and whatever. And all groups inside MEFANET who are working with virtual patients or interactive algorithms and all stuff around virtual patients, they are facing today the dramatic technological change because a lot of matters have been done in Flash technology, and we have to move to HTML5 technology or jQuery mobile or whatever technology is compatible enough with iOS and Android. And it's a lot of work. We have to do it. We spend a lot of time with it. Sometimes we even waste time. And it seems to me that all people want to have their activities on their mobile platforms, and I will ask for another video which will lighten maybe the atmosphere. So this was just to digress for a second, and let's get back to the MEFANET's missions. The mission number 5, to expand the network by attracting new institutions. By expanding the network, I mean basically to increase the number of active users of our tools and platforms. And last week I had the opportunity to chair one session on the 5th conference of Akutně.cz group, and they had really a wonderful attendance of more than 700 students. And you can see the faces, how engaged the medical students as well as the young physicians are. And imagine that they came in this huge number during the Saturday. And I know that there is similarly engaged group in wiki lectures. Again, very engaged people who will once expand our network. And it is with thanks to Peter Storach, who is leading the group Akutně.cz, and it is with thanks to Martin Bejraška, who engage young students in the wiki lectures and help us to promote the network and expand the network for the future. We also succeeded in expanding our network last year, or maybe it's more than 1 year ago, when 6 faculties of health science entered the network. And where we are at the moment is that they have their own committee inside the network, and they, for example, audited all the contents which is belonging to their scope. And again this year we will hear a lot from them, so don't miss their sessions today and tomorrow. They are scheduled as you see on this slide. The last but not the least mission is promoting the network and looking for crucial funding. Promoting the network is a never-ending story, and we have to do it not only to develop MEFANET as a high-class brand. We need to do it also to get crucial funding, for example, from the upcoming framework Horizon 2020, and I think that Professor Bamidis will touch on this point, so I will skip. And I would like to thank again to all MEFANET friends who have succeeded in publishing their results connected to ICT and medical education recently. I think that nobody of us, or maybe very little of us, were aware of the fact, several years ago were aware of the fact that it would be possible, simply by doing pedagogy under MEFANET, to achieve scientific results in the form of scientific publications, or in the form of articles. Somewhere of them are in highly impacted journals. And I hope that these will be followed by many others very soon. I would also like to thank to Professor Stanislav Štipek, who as an organizer or local organizer of AMI conference, the last AMI conference in Prague, arranged meetings between MEFANET people and AMI authorities. And I believe that the MEFANET network will benefit certainly from that cooperation very soon. And let me also draw your attention to our scientific journal, very fresh MEFANET journal, which is devoted to applications and research in medical informatics applied into education. The first issue is available in electronic as well as in printed form, and just now we are finishing the second issue. And I'm calling on you to give serious consideration to publish your results right in here. This is my conclusion. As you have seen, we succeeded to finish a lot of tasks, but a lot of work is ahead of us. And I think that we are all aware of the fact that MEFANET people are a group of very hard-working people who love their jobs, especially the pedagogy aroma in it, because it's just fun. And with these two crazy guys, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to take the questions now.